Welcome, everybody, to another really amazing episode of the Film Neighbor Network seminar. We have some heavy hitters today from the art and set tech departments. We have Buffalo locals David Butler, Frank Coppola, and Kyle Furchin, and then calling in all the way from Los Angeles, California, Justin Simonetti, and Film Neighbor Network's own Hanna Waltz. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming with us and doing this seminar today.
Woo, thanks for having us.
Woo.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having it.
We'll just do some quick introductions here. This is for everybody, whoever wants to start. Otherwise, I will just point at someone. Where are you from originally, and how did you first break into the industry and get to where you are now?
Who do you want
David,
to
go ahead. David.
I knew you were going to pick me.
David, go ahead.
I could talk a long time, but I'll try to keep it short. I went to school for graphic design a long time ago and got the theater bug after seeing a pretty intense play called Streamers. And I sort of joined the theater club, and I ended up getting my graphic design degree in 5 years of college because I got so involved in theater. And then I kind of never looked back. I was an actor, and then about 30 years of set design, more currently. And then the film thing happened, I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago. I just worked it was kind of a fun thing where somebody called up and asked me to basically be a prop maker for a film called The American Side, and I loved it. Some of my other friends that were involved in the production seemed to not like it because it was a whole different, it wasn't like theater. But I thought that was it. And I thought, oh boy, that was fun. But now fast forwarding, 7, 8 years, I think I just did worked on my 29th motion picture. Happened to be lucky enough to be in Buffalo, that's sort of building and growing into a new film town. And that's the short story. So.
Very cool. Frank, how about you?
Similar to David, but I started in theater. Basically, there was a regional theater in Buffalo called Studio Arena, and I worked, building and painting scenery there for, probably on and off for about 7 years. Film-wise, I was lucky enough to get on Buffalo 66, which was a film that was done here in, I think, 96, 97, maybe they shot it. And I was a grip. So that led to going to New York and working on a couple TV shows. And then I didn't really do anything with film until it started picking up back here again, like David said, about 7 years ago or so. And I did grip work and a little bit of electrics for a little while. But my background has always been art and construction and painting. So I kind of just transitioned into the art department. So that was it. I mean, we all got lucky, I think, that it kind of came here. And if you had a skill set that fit with it, if you got it in the beginning, we really got lucky, I think.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very cool. Kyle, fellow Buff State alumnus, how about you?
Well,
Oh, hold on. Kyle, can you hear us? There you are. Oh, maybe.
maybe.
There we go. Maybe.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
Kind of.
Kind of. Always have issues. You can move on to Hannah or somebody
Okay.
while my
Okay.
connection figures out.
Hanna, fellow Buff State alumnus. See, it's the same thing. But you're out in Los Angeles.
I am, but I got started under David Butler actually at they did an open call for interns on a show that was coming into Buffalo, and I showed up and I signed up for art department, and then the rest was history. And then David brought me on to a few other projects, and then that led up to working alongside him on A Quiet Place in Buffalo, where I met the current set decorator that I work under, who asked me to come out to LA and work with her here. So I'm playing the game where I'll go back and forth from LA to Buffalo and just kind of float around because I like all my Buffalo peeps, but also just want to explore too.
Yeah.
You're,
And
you're
then
the
Justin, you're a new face here. Introduce yourself here.
I am from the San Francisco area originally. Went and studied film in San Diego State. And then came right back home to live at home and work as a videographer for a bit. Mostly did like training videos for the Chevron refinery out in Richmond. And then decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And joined a Facebook group for San Francisco State film students, which I was not. And scalped my first job off of that Facebook group, which got me on a commercial. I ended up doing commercials for 2 or 3 years as a set PA first, and then working up to art PA and set dresser type. Decided I didn't want to do commercials anymore, hopped onto a film as an art PA, and here I am in LA working as a set deck PA. And hoping that LA works out.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. I can't wait for you to share all of your collective knowledge with our viewers here. Frank, I'll go back to you just to start off about the day-to-day. I know everyone's in kind of slightly different positions, but what is your day-to-day if you arrive on set and you start doing what?
Well, I mean, it really completely depends on the day, you know. I mean, if you're pre-dressing, you're usually jumping from pre-dressing a set. Day to day, you're working with the lead man, decorator, right? You're coordinating with the lead man to get everything to where it needs to be, and getting things out of where they just were from the last location. So it's a lot of logistics and coordination. You know, so yeah, I usually don't start out on set as a set decorator. I mean, there's a lot of office work. There's a lot of budgets. You know, you're coordinating with people. They get there first. They get their work done. You kind of go. You're running all over the place basically when you're doing that job.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Yeah, it's tough to say on day to day.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else want to jump on to that? Maybe share their different experience, Hannah?
So art department and set decoration is a ton of prep work. I mentioned it before we all started, but we're on a film right now, me and Justin, that we've been prepping since August, and cameras don't even roll until almost the end of January. So there's a ton of prep work that comes with that. So as a position in like a researching position, which I'm in now, I'm spending my time looking up foreign sets, like looking up specific things that, like, if the movie's going to be shown in a different country, they're not going to be like, that's inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my day today right now in like a prep sense. But once we go to set, it'll be a little different of a pace. Like once all the prep work is done and we're starting to dwindle down on that, my responsibility will change a bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. David, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like Frank in the sense that I think it depends on the size film that we're working on, what our role is. Like I sort of started off working my way up as Frank in the production designer role, and that's a whole different, every day is different. Every day is, you're somewhere between being the overseer of a look that you've created, to having either, depending on the size of the film, in some cases, I think like on the one that Hannah and Kyle worked on, there was 6 people in the art department, and that included everything from scene painters, builders, researchers, all of that. But then, and I worked my way up to production designer on indies, and then now that we're working on these bigger films, the last bigger films I've been the set deck buyer. So all I'm doing is researching and treasure hunting, and every day is different because every set is different. But I think it's important to mention that the art department starts with the script. Always, it's always about the characters and the script and the story we're telling, and that to me is the most fun part. Is that when you, in a way, you have to take on a role of an actor or as a director, because you have to get into the heads of the characters that you're talking about and make sure that you're all the heavy hitters, the DP, again, depending on the role, the production designer, that you're all sort of heading in the same direction, telling the same story in the same way. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way, but I think that's the ideal thing. And it's so much fun when you get there, because you can see the characters starting to create themselves before the actors on set, because you're telling the background of that. If you're showing like a background scene, a bedroom scene, everything that's in that bedroom tells an audience about who they are, right? Even though I always use the example of theater. When you're an audience member in a theater, you are sitting in a chair and you're probably seeing the same 3 sets for 2 hours, right? But in film, like any of us right now, I'm going to make everyone uncomfortable for a second, is that I can tell a little bit about every one of you by what's in the background of your shot, right? So that's what we're doing, right? We're creating that feeling of a character, and sometimes within seconds. Like if you're a minor character that's about to get killed, like 30 seconds into your scene, it's our job as art department to make you feel for that person, or besides obviously what the actor's doing, but for you to get a feeling of who that is. And if you got if there's nothing in the room, you don't give a shit. But if it's someone that I need you to immediately care about because they're about to get murdered, I might have family pictures on the mantle. I might have, sweet flowers or something, or, the prop that you have in your hand is going to affect how the audience feels in that particular scene. And it's very quick in film. There's no time for you to sit there and sort of figure it out like you would in theater. And I don't know, I find that the treasure hunt is invigorating, but the storytelling is what we're all doing, and we're very much a part of that, even though you will work on some productions where they don't get that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's got to be a real struggle sometimes to keep everyone working on the film on that same page. Kyle, it looks like we've got you back a little more securely now. Next question, I'll start with you. Can you talk about that collaboration between your department and the other departments you're working with to stay on the same page?
I just had a quick question, actually.
Oh, go for it.
Sure.
There was the last gentleman that was on. I'm coming in from the acting side. I do recognize quite a few of you from set, and thank you again for having this, because I always have a willing to learn, and as an actor, I feel the more that I can learn, the more I can get in tune with being in character and being, like you said. I was going to ask the question, do you guys look at the script at all before doing the artwork? So it was more of a comment too, that he touched on that subject, and it was very interesting for me to hear it from that point of view. So I just wanted to kind of thank him for that, and I'm really just looking forward to the rest of this meeting, and appreciate you having it again. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. So Kyle, that collaborative process between your department and the rest of the departments.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mainly I work in set dressing. I mainly work in as a set dresser and an on-set dresser. My most experience I have so far is an on-set dresser. The collaboration I have on set is, like, as David said, David and Frank, they work so hard to make the room like part of the character. And David could talk about this too. He's worked as an on-set as well. It's kind of my job to make sure that stays the way they want it during shooting. So when a crew comes in and they film, they have to set up lights, they have to put in all the equipment, actors, everything. Some things a lot of things will have to move around. Things will have to be taken out. And then they'll have to be put back in the way that, you know, the director, the DP, and the production designer want. So you're kind of the gatekeeper for the set throughout shooting. You know, you're keeping the vision that the production designer has designed there for to be captured on film. So you're collaborating, you're kind of being pulled between like 4 different people: the director, the DP, the producers, the decorator, the production designer. So you're kind of, you know, you kind of have to stay in contact with all of them and, you know, figure out solutions should they arise. You know, like David was saying, you know, he might want family pictures on the mantle to give the character more like of a, like, say, as a family, but it would be a really bad thing if those pictures fell off the table and smashed to the ground. You don't want that to happen. So it's the on-set's job to make sure like everything stays the way it is. And if something does unfortunately go wrong, you know, you relay that to the department heads to solve that, because you don't want that character moment to be lost.
Justin, does that collaboration change at all between more commercial work versus narrative work?
Well, yeah. I mean, the commercial world is like very different. I mean, I mentioned that I've done set dressing on commercial work. I'm not a union guy, so being a art PA in the commercial world is like way different than film. Right now, being a set deck, I'm doing a lot of office work and pickups and paperwork. It's funny, I've actually even gone through the script and like marked out props that need to be where and what kind of things fill the room at certain specific times. But yeah, working in the on commercials and stuff, it's more hands-on from the start, because it's just like a smaller operation. And I'm sure it works slightly differently in LA as well, because it seems like there are more rules here. But speaking specifically of San Francisco Bay Area, it also changes the dynamic that everybody in San Francisco in art department and grip department and electric actually have all the same union, which is, from what I understand, unusual. So we're all like part of the same team in that way. It's not saying that I'm going to pick up a light and move it, but you know, you end up seeing a lot of the same faces, and you can go to grip department and be like, hey, can I grab an apple box? You know, and there's not as much of a divide between that kind of thing. I don't know. I guess I haven't seen on set as much in film yet. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a closer but smaller like relationship, I guess, in the commercial world.
Yeah. And then, Frank, I just wanted to end this with you. Can you talk a little bit about how you collaborate with a director when they say, I want to do this, and the thing they want you to make does not exist, and you have to figure out how to maybe build something or paint something a certain way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of it, especially, you know, and I think a lot of this conversation will kind of really depend on the size of film that you're on, because it is very different. Your responsibilities in each department or each position, I think, are kind of different in a way on a different size film. You're so much more hands-on. The smaller the film, the more you're responsible for. So in a lot of the indie world and on the smaller tier stuff, you have to get really crafty a lot of times, and it's very, very collaborative. And on the indie level, things change. You know, they don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of time. Something doesn't work, you have to come up with a solution for it. And I like to get really deep with the director and get into his head enough that I know what so obviously, well, for me to feel comfortable as well, to know what he's looking for and what he wants, and just to already know that, and to try to bring more than he expects, I guess, is what I always am trying to do. something that is either unexpected or more than they thought, or especially if you can impact the narrative by bringing something, or creating a book that they want to take advantage of more than they thought they would.
Yeah.
Which I think in a way also happened on A Quiet Place, I believe. And Hannah, you probably would be more privy to this than I would be, actually. But it seemed like they would go in with not a great shooting plan, and the sets were done so well that they spent more time shooting in there than they thought they were going to, because they wanted to get more of the environment. And that to me is like the ultimate goal, is to create an environment that they want to spend more time in, either with inserts or establishing shots. And that would be all through collaboration, and again, on the smaller things, you are really intimate with the director. There's only a few people on the little movies. So yeah, collaboration is absolutely key. I mean, that's what it's all about,
All right.
Mhm.
Hannah, I
answers
do
your
want to
question.
kick off the next question, starting with you.
Mhm.
Hannah, can you talk a little bit about, well, like you mentioned earlier, the film you're working on now, you're in pre-production, you have been since August, you're not even going to start shooting until next year. Can you talk about how your job changes between pre-production and then when you start shooting?
It's going to be a little different on this one than others, because the way that unions work, I'm unionized in New York, but I'm not unionized here. So there's a lot of rules that I have to abide by, or the show will get grieved, which means that if someone sees me that's not in the union, they don't think that I'm in the union, which I'm not. They can see me picking something up, moving it into a set, and they can be like, she's taking a job from someone that's in the union. So it is a fine line to walk. But on this one, I think because it's such, just in comparison, like a smaller movie, the lines are more blurred. But on this one, because it's a mega budget and there's a lot of people attached to it, and it's for Netflix, you have to be very careful. So as a researcher right now, I am doing, as I said before, I'm looking things up. I'm finding sources of things, like Justin can probably relate to me on this, but I spent 4 months trying to get lanterns from Chiang Mai, Thailand. But the guy that I'm talking to doesn't speak English, so I'm using Google Translate to type all my messages out and send it to him. So it was like it's these intricate handmade lanterns. So it just took so long for the COVID gap, the language gap, the time gap, because I'd be emailing him on a Friday, but it's Saturday night there. It's like it was a whole thing. So once all that comes in, I guess I won't have as much of a presence on set as I can in New York, but I'm still tracking all the things that I'm bringing in. I'm still making sure they get to the warehouse and they're distributed into their correct shelves and everything, because it's all organized. We have a warehouse manager. So my job will continue on in that essence. And then once it dies down with purchasing and sourcing things, I'll start to wrap those things out. So if something's over $500, that's an asset to Netflix. So it either has to be sold or they're going to keep it or whatever. And then everything else, I haven't gotten that far yet, but sometimes they have set sales, or sometimes it's just a big filing thing, so that if they need to reopen this shooting, if they miss a shot or if they need to go back because something got corrupted, then they know exactly where everything is, where it came from, how it was set up. So you're just helping the future people that might need to hop onto the show. So set isn't going to be a thing for me so much on this one, but I'll be behind the scenes still.
Wow. Justin, do you have something to tag on to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm surprised you actually didn't mention that the lamps also, or the lanterns, also during pre-production have come and gone for this scene so many times. It was like they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off, and having to deal with that person that she could barely like communicate with regularly. and then having that piece of the set come and go so frequently. I mean, that'll.
It's like a blind faith that he had to put in me. But he's a really nice guy. I'm gonna send him a card because he's really put up with us. So
Yeah, but that's something that like pre-production that you just have to deal with. I mean, that stuff, different stuff is called for, and then they change their mind, and you roll with that, and it narrows down as you get closer to production, of course. But
David. Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then it can show up, and they can still not put it in. So it's just you gotta have tough skin, because it sometimes something you work so hard on and you put 40 hours into, it just won't make it in. So
David, do you have any stories like that? Something you worked for months on and then they changed at the last minute?
There are so many. I don't know where to start. I will say that, and I've said this a zillion times, that the thing that's kind of awesome about this line of business is that it's a great lesson for life, because nobody cares how hard it is, how you spent 40 hours on something else, that your car broke down, that your dog ate your script. Nobody, excuse my language, but nobody gives a shit.
Yep.
And you don't want to be the person that's holding things up because you're not figuring out another answer, right? So one of the things that I was taught early on is that when something goes wrong, you don't say, that's not ready, or we forgot it. You say, I have 3 options. These are the 3 things that we have for you today. I know that I'm going to set up. You don't say we forgot something, or something, something hasn't arrived yet. You say, and oh my God, there's so many. You learn quick. And we learned on the indies, thank God. I know one of the first films that I production designed was called After the Sun Fell. And oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Famous actor, he plays the robot in the second Alien movie.
Lance Henriksen.
Thank you. Lance Henriksen. Yep. So in the script, Lance in one scene has a iPad, and without getting into the story too much, he can't see very well, so there's big type on it, and it was in the call sheet for one day, right? So, and this is a very low budget indie. It was my pad, right? And I left it at home. So we get to set one day, and the director says, we need that pad for Lance for this scene. And I'm thinking, well, it's not in the script, and it's not, why would we need that today? And it was sort of like, but at the same time, I'm not saying that. I'm like, oh shit. Like, it's at home next to my bed, which is like 45 minutes away and 45 minutes back. The camera's ready to go. And it's that moment where you use the resources you have, which in this case was the crew, and somebody had something that looked very similar to that. So, and again, this wasn't a big film where there's 260 people on the crew. It was me and I think 4 other people, right? So I, the production designer, am now driving home while they're shooting this scene that they wanted with this other pad, and it's cut out of the shot. And then by the time I got back, they shot, they did like more of an establishing shot to put it all together. But I mean, there's so many, oh my God. One of my favorite stories about this whole thing, and I think Hanna, and I don't know, Hanna, if you were still on Coldbrook at the time when we did the shipwreck scene.
Oh, I was there for that.
Yeah, Kyle, I know Kyle was there.
Oh yeah.
So there's this scene in this film, and this is Bill Fichtner, and it's really all about a ghost haunting a shipwreck museum show, right? And in it, a vital part of the script is that you have to see the shipwreck, because the whole thing is about, if you have to see a flashback at some point, right? The whole thing's about it. So again, I'm production designing, not a lot of experience, certainly not with underwater things. So I'm calling up my friends in LA and like, how do you do this? And I have a friend that worked on a couple Sharknadoes, and he said, you need to build a set, you need to empty a swimming pool and build the set inside the swimming pool. And I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. And then, thank God, somebody else said to me, well, make sure you have 4 days, because it will, if all you have is a garden hose, it will take at least 4 days to even get 2 feet of water back in your swimming pool. So I'm like, oh my God. So Bill Fichtner is like ready to cut the scene. And I'm like, you can't cut the scene. This is a vital part of the whole story. So then I have this like sort of impromptu meeting with the DP, who is great, really sweet, talented guy. And he's like, well, why don't we do a seesaw? Right? So I'm like, as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh. So a couple of, again, this tiny little crew, we're working way over our 12 hours because we're not union at the time, right? We go to my shop and we build this like 12-foot by 10-foot piece of a pirate ship, because the shipwreck is supposed to be like 1823. And we build this giant seesaw that goes up and down. We put a railing on it with stuff from, you know, like patio furniture stuff from Home Depot. And so now, and it was this goes back to that coordination thing, right? So the locations people found us a fire hall in Orchard Park that was willing to let us shoot this inside, because Bill Fichtner, who had been in A Perfect Storm, was really keen on making sure that we could change the temperature of the water, because he had been in this movie where the water was freezing cold, and he didn't want to put an actor through that. So flash forward, we're in the middle of this fire hall. The fire trucks are outside. We've completely surrounded the interior with black fabric. This is the grips. Lighting guys set up some flashing lightning, and we're all standing around this crazy seesaw with buckets of water. We have the hoses full of water. We have the wind machines, and we're all like a bunch of 8-year-olds having the best time of our lives creating this. And the best part of it was hearing one of these LA guys who was, you know, at Video Village go, "This looks like Hollywood." Right? And it was all for, you know, probably $500 worth of wood and, you know, free special effects we were getting from the fire hall. But it's that, for me, as much as I love all the fun, the character research and stuff, and then the bigger films, I'm been sort of separated from this. But the excitement of all this is that creative problem solving and thinking outside the box, and, you know, maybe you're not exactly coming up with what they're asking for, but you might actually come up with something better that they didn't think about. And it's all of that that just makes this such a blast. But I think that would probably be the best, like, we're getting really close to shooting. We still don't know how we're going to do this, but we figured it out. And it's like 10 seconds in the movie. But I think it's a pretty believable 10 seconds, even though it's in a freaking fire hall. So
It looked great. It looked really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it just, again, and I will also say that I learned some movie magic that I didn't really understand how it worked, because we shot like the 12 feet with one character, you know, things rocking up and down, and then we flipped the thing around at a different set deck and shot it the other way. So in the film, it looks like you're seeing 20 feet of ship and not just 10. So that was like, oh, that's how they do that. So I would say that's the other thing about this, is that I'm not going to tell you my age right now, but I'm still learning, and I love the learning process of this.
Yeah.
So.
Kyle, I want to bring it back to you. For our viewers that want to start this process that David just mentioned, and maybe get into the industry as an art PA, set deck PA, what are some things that you encourage them as far as like qualities and attitude, you know, anything that maybe you wish you had known when you were first starting out?
Well, for me, I've been told this by a few people. It's like 90% attitude. Like I interned with David, and it was, I think, my second feature I was on, but I like, when we did that shipwreck thing, by the way, I was one of the guys rocking that ship deck, being drenched with water. And I was like, I had no rain gear. It was just my jacket. It was the best time. It's still like one of my favorite days on set. But it was like, but I just had, I pride myself in just having a good attitude about things. I was an intern. I wasn't being paid, but I was just having a blast just being on this set, like learning all these things from David, from Amy, from Seth. Like, it was just so, And I've been told, like, by some other people I've worked with, like, you know, I'll admit I am not the best at anything, but I try to come into any situation with a good attitude. And I've also worked with PAs who, you know, are still learning. You know, everyone makes mistakes, but some PAs just have such a good attitude where you're like, I definitely want to work with this person again. And then, you know, having a little bit of skill set, being able to problem solve, definitely helps and everything. Being eager, just, you know, to me that'll get you so far in this industry, especially in just being hired. Like nobody I know really wants to work with, you know, people who they don't really like or don't get along with, but it's the people who just come in with a good attitude, I think, or especially when you're starting out. Just attitude, I think, will get you a long ways.
Yeah, Frank, you've been in the position of having to assemble a team and look for people with these qualities. Is Kyle and nailing it on the head?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that I see, you know, it's such a weird environment to be in when you first get there. You can see, you know, a PA that's never been on set or an intern, and it is very disorienting. So I think there's just a way to. What I'm really looking for in somebody is somebody that can see ahead. You know, somebody that can tell anticipate ahead what's going to be happening. You know, and they know that's the biggest skill that I look for, actually, in a nutshell, is someone who's not going to just be standing there waiting to be told, even though you kind of have to be waited, you have to wait to be told, but that they are just at least one step ahead and know what's coming, because you're always playing 2-3 steps ahead. Yeah, but attitude is crucial for sure.
And Justin, can you tell our viewers about, like, I mean, when the day is rough, when it's a heavy day, what do you do to get through to the next day?
You try to get a good night's sleep.
Nice try.
I think, I mean, for me, really, it just comes down to, and this kind of ties into like good qualities in a PA, I think, it really comes down to respecting your own position in the film, and recognizing that even though it's a long slog and maybe you're on a lockdown for 12 hours, which thankfully I haven't done in quite a while, but it's terrible, and you just gotta respect that you are like a important part of this process. And if it's something, you know, I think we're probably all pretty passionate about filmmaking, and I think I don't know. I think that you're in a bad position if you're like, you always want to be looking for, like, you know, where you want to go as a PA, but if you aren't respecting the position you're in right at the moment and recognizing that you're an important part of what's going on, even though you aren't next to the camera or you aren't moving set pieces, that's going to help the most. That's going to help with that attitude, and that's what gets me coming back on set and staying excited for those kind of situations, I guess.
And then Hanna, you worked in Buffalo for a long time. Did the tricks of the trade that you learned here and the skills you learned here help when you then went to LA, or is it a completely different monster out there?
It is a monster. But the thing is, I think that the importance of starting in like a pressured indie situation really vets you to just like handle that on a higher level. So when you know that feeling, like it's the 11th hour, you maybe have gotten a collective 10 hours of sleep in the last 5 days, and like, you know how problems multiply with money. They really do, but you get like more of a sense of financial appreciation for that. You get more if you're on a union set, there's more rules and things like that. But I don't know. It's starting as a PA in Buffalo, I wouldn't have changed my course at all. And I think that's why this is so important, because you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond and you can forge these relationships with people. And like, I worked under David Butler for a really long time, and I've learned just so much from him. And that's part of my stitching as a filmmaker. So it's that collaborative effort and like being in this small pod that people really care about each other, that makes my job now much easier.
Right.
Can I interject real quickly? Because I want to compliment both. I mean, Kyle and Hanna worked on Colebrook, which flipped in the middle to a union film. But the thing about those two guys, and there's a couple other ones, and I'm blanking out on some of their names right now, but they were there every day. I don't think you guys weren't even PAs. I don't think weren't you like interns?
We were
They were getting paid.
We were specifically art interns. Like I think
They weren't getting
tagging
paid,
you.
but they showed up 110% every day. Tracking through the mud and the goop and the pressure and probably some bitchy Dave Butler days. But they were there every day. On the other side of this, and I guess I'm going back a little bit, is that the bad kind of thing that can happen is that I know we had a guy in our shop that claimed to be a carpenter, young guy out of college. 4 hours after having him build a box, the box still wasn't there. And I mean, I'm okay with that. I get that, sometimes you tweak your resume a little bit and you say you're a carpenter when you really are not, and that's how you get into it. But the problem is that when I asked him what he was doing, and I said, why don't you try this? He interrupted me and said, that's not how I would do it. And that was his last day, right? Because we don't have time for that, right? Because there's things that have to get done. And so being honest and showing up are the big things, and being open to learning. And you guys have always been open to that. And I will say, I mean, in Hannah's case, the person that she's working for right now saw that early on. And that's why she is in LA now. So, and not that Kyle wouldn't be there too. Some of it's luck, right? It's like who you happen to be lost the office from, right? But yeah, so those are the kind of people that we're looking for. Yeah, sorry, I think I went back a little bit.
Oh, thank you, David. Justin.
I actually wanted to piggyback on that a little bit and say you also like don't know where your next job might be coming from. So it's good to recognize the different positions and have respect for those positions as well. I'm sounding like a broken record already, but for example, I got into doing feature films because I was doing one day on a show called The OA, and I was like helping them wrap out the offices in San Francisco. I wasn't even like on the show. I wasn't on set or anything. I worked a lot with the coordinator that one day, and had a good attitude about it and mentioned that I did art department stuff. And I never worked with her again after that. She tried to pass me a few jobs here and there. And then she ended up passing along my name for a job as an art PA on The Matrix 4. And then I ended up on The Matrix. And then I ended up being the assistant to the production designer. And it was all because I, gave her a hand on this one day wrap out. So, it does come down to luck a lot of the time. But it's also just like being that helping hand to whoever you're working with. And yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you so much, everybody. These last couple questions here, I really want to open up to whoever wants to answer. I know we might all have wildly different experiences about unions. What are they? How you get in? Is it hard to get in? You know, what are the benefits to getting in? And really, anyone that can speak to this, please.
I mean, the obvious benefits. I think none of us could deny the fact that the union is being very beneficial to us. I think, you know, as far as getting in here, right? It was, again, we were in a unique position where they were trying to open up Western New York to more filming, and part of building the infrastructure was to have unionized crew here. So those of us that got, you know, sort of an early start in the beginnings of the industry here, we're lucky enough to get cards where, and if you were in a bigger market, it would take you a lot longer to get, I'm sure. So I'm sure, again, that question is going to vary from, you know, place to place. But yeah, I mean, the benefits are fantastic. It's secure, you know, it enables you to be hired on a bigger production, and, you know, much better rates, much more secure position. You know, when you qualify for the insurance is fantastic. You know, and I mean, I'm still getting unemployment from last year, you know, and that wouldn't have happened without the union. So yeah, David, right?
Yeah,
It's been good.
Yeah. Oh my God. The money is to actually be an artist and make a living wage for the first time in my long struggling artist career is something I can't even describe. I mean, right now, I mean, it sucks. I mean, I'm on unemployment as well, thanks to a strong union. And I think I'm starting to understand that the union on the East Coast is stronger than the one on the West Coast. I know that there was issues on A Quiet Place with the carpenters making more money in New York than they were. They'd come all the way from LA, right? But there's also
better contracts.
Yes, but there's also this feeling of having someone at your back all the time. So if something's gone wrong or you're not being treated well, like for instance, my health insurance was screwed up really badly on A Quiet Place. And I ended up losing it for almost an entire year, but it went all the way up to the head of the union that finally I still don't know exactly what went wrong, whether it was the administrative staff, the accountant, or the paycheck people, but somebody screwed something up. But the president of the freaking union ended up calling to them to finally get it figured out, right? So to have that feeling of being backed up. And then there's also, I just got referred to a job, and again, my sort of like, you know, Frank, is that I come from a world where I do everything. In those 30 years of theater, I designed the set, I built it, I cut the wood, I painted the scenes, and I did the whole thing. So the only thing that I don't like is being sort of pigeonholed into a certain thing. Like when Colebrook flipped from a non-union to a union, I got a pat on the back because we were all going to get our cards. And one of the guys, bless his heart, said to me, thinking it was a compliment, he said, "You know, Dave, your days of running wood through a saw are over." And I almost, like, I walked away and I teared up because I love running wood through a saw. You know? But at the same time, you end up becoming part of this big family that when you step back, I mean, there's been times where I've walked on to what was an empty room 3 days before, and this incredible thing has been built by, you know, 100 people, and you feel like you're a part of something. And, you know, the union, again, there's all these weird, goofy rules that sort of make things look like they don't make sense, but it keeps all these people employed and making a living wage, and it's a huge thing. I think the one thing that wasn't answered is how you get in. And again, us Buffalo people kind of lucked out because we're in the market for film. I know it's a lot harder in these other places, but I think it's that stuff that we've been talking about, is that someone, if you're doing your job and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and coming in with a good attitude, someone is going to notice it, and they're going to help you. They're going to help you get pulled in. So.
All right. Thank you, David. And our final question here, the question of the times, we are still in the middle of a global pandemic, but we are still filmmakers. So can anyone speak to how you have to approach your position much differently now with COVID regulations, if you're able to find work at all?
I can speak on, let me see. Okay. I mute myself from time to time because I live on a very noisy corner. But uh, the COVID restrictions on this show, because we're essential workers in LA right now, it's more than any other show that I've talked to my friends like about how their show's going with COVID restrictions. We are everyone has their own pod. You don't cross pods. We get tested once a week. After holidays, we get tested 3 times a week. And once set happens, I'm pretty sure they're going to do rapid tests every day. In pre-production, I don't see there being an issue because we are such small pods. But I think looking forward in this COVID situation, there's, without disclosing too much, there's going to be a scene with 150 extras in it. And I think that is going to start. That's the logistical nightmare that's gonna happen, because rapid tests are 70% accurate. So you're gambling with a 30% with a lot of people in one room that don't necessarily, can't track everyone down and make sure that they're being safe. And especially in LA, there's a huge social issue that, like, not necessarily everyone's going to bars, but there's a mansion party every 15 feet. So it's and these are super spreader things. So it's not always, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to progress through that and how they're going to make it safe. But as I've heard that there's going to be very limited people actually filming on set, and it's just going to be a whole different beast once we get into it, because usually, like, you can walk on to a set and be behind the scenes, like, no matter kind of what. Like, you can just go, and like on the last one I was at, we were at Warner Brothers, and our office was across the street from our stage, and they were filming. So I'd be like, all right, I'm just going to go check out what they're doing. And I walk over there, and you're immersed into this experience. And I think that COVID's going to take that away for the time being, where it's kind of cut and dry, and you're not going to be able to really appreciate the full process as you can on normal films.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to jump right now into the questions that we've been receiving in the chat, and then we're going to open up to a live Q&A if you have anything you'd like to ask our participants. For Hanna, you mentioned your job as a researcher. The question was asked if that's like a specific position in the art department, or is that kind of one part of something you already do?
There is actually 2 research positions. There might be another one for another department, but from my experience, there's always an art researcher, an art department researcher, and a set deck researcher, because they kind of go for different things. I communicate with the art department researcher on this one sometimes, because if they need something that is more structural, that researcher probably already looked that up. Like, if there's going to be like a gunshot in something, like, he has already looked into that, because our department is the builders of it. But if it comes down to what chairs are going to be in a courtroom in 1940, then that's something that I would look up. But yeah, so that's kind of those are the 2 that I know, art and set deck researcher.
Very cool. Thank you. And then Camden asked about the name of the unions we've been talking about in Buffalo. David, can you specify what those are called?
Yeah, there's 2, there's sort of a crossover with 2 unions in the art department. There's Local 52, which includes set decoration, set deck. What am I missing? But it also includes grips and electric and those guys too. So that's so those are the hands-on getting things done, moving furniture. That's props as well. And then 829 is the pretty much the rest of the art department, from the production designer, the set decorators, the set designers, the draftsmen, and also the probably the biggest group is the scenic artists, the people that actually paint the sets and make things look old, or put the top layer on. Oh, carpenters are in 52. And again, some of it doesn't really make any sense to me, like how these are split up. But those are the two. I guess if you bring in costumes, that's a whole nother wardrobe and costumes is a whole nother thing. But we're all part of the creative part of the film. And I guess you could. It's hair and makeup has their own union too, I think, right?
Oh,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
And then this last question here, Frank, I'll direct this to you. We talked obviously about how important it is to have a good attitude and a drive when you're looking for people to hire. But as far as like actual skills, do I need to know how to draw or use a drill? Is that an advantage to this kind of position?
It always would be, I think, but it's not I wouldn't say it's an absolute requirement. I think a general sense of aesthetics, I mean, there's people that have an eye for aesthetics and there's people that don't, so I think being able to see the finer points of maybe, color, form, textures, certainly with period pieces, Hannah's working on things that are, enormous, and you can go and look for lots and lots of real specific materials. Interior design is a huge part of it. So having a general sense of aesthetics, placement of things, is huge. It's for set decoration, set dressing, some hands-on skills are definitely going to help. Set dressers use tools, they assemble things, some of it can be actually very mechanical on the dressing end. But no, you don't necessarily have to be an artist per se. You don't have to be a painter or whatever. But I think, a general sense of aesthetics and design is the key for all of the all the parts of the art department.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, thank you. And then Kyle, that last job that you worked on, the COVID regulations, did that get in the way of you being able to do your job in any way?
In some cases, yes. I mean, there were times where, like, for example, one of the other dressers, we were shooting on like a massive sound stage where we had like 8 different sets being built and whatever. One of the dressers, they were working on stage B, dressing a dorm room that was going to be shot in the back half of the day. So they needed a mattress from one of the sets to, basically repurpose into the other set, but they were zone B and we were zone A. They could not physically come onto the stage until the actors left. Otherwise, in a non-COVID world, as soon as we cut, we could be like, okay, right, yeah, it's right over there. They walk in, they grab it, the set gets made much faster. But in the COVID world, like, when zone A, like when the actors stepped on stage, you basically, anyone who is tested for zone B, which is like the other set dressers, the prep crew, all that, they are barred from coming into the stage, just to keep those two things separate. Also, once we got to shooting, I was the second on-set dresser. I worked below the key on-set, Megan, who was a wonderful on-set. I learned so much from her. We were tested. We worked, I think, 6 days a week. We shot 6 days. We were tested 7 times a week, like every day. And then we were tested for Zone A Monday through Saturday, and then Zone B, we would get tested Wednesday, so that we could mingle between the two zones safely. So Wednesday, I would get in line for one COVID test, have a COVID test, and then I'd get back in a line for another COVID test. I have a jar for all my COVID wristbands.
Oh my God.
Each one of these wristbands was a COVID test over 2 months.
Oh my
Yeah, there's Hannah.
Oh, there it is, Hanna. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Oh man.
Each one of those was a COVID test over 2 months. It was, it wasn't as uncomfortable. I mean, they were the rapid tests, so they were 70%. By the end, we switched to a different a test that was more like 95% accurate. So I'd say the last 3 weeks we tested twice on Monday. One rapid to clear us for that day of work, and then the second test was to clear us for Tuesday. And then our Tuesday morning test would clear us for Wednesday, and then so on and so forth. But it was, I mean, there were some things where it was like, because of the rapid test, there was a 70% accuracy, but there was like 3 times where we had a false positive, where it's like someone on the crew would test positive, they would immediately shut down for 2 days, and they would get 2 tests, and they had to pass the 2 tests. If they passed the 2 tests, it was considered a false positive, and you go back to work after those 2 days. But that happened about 3 times, and one of them was on day 2, or day 3. So it was, but we would get our results about 3 hours after we got them. But it was always that anxiety of like, for the whole shoot, whereas that first 3 hours were just like, am I even going to be here at 5 o'clock? Like, I don't know. So it is that little anxiety of like, a computer error could shut your production down for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
And then not being able to have the help of like, other dressers or something help you, or like be able to do their job once the Zone A crew came on, that was pretty frustrating. But then there's other days where it was like, we would be out in a park shooting a huge outdoor scene. Everyone's spread out, and the only thing that's different is you're wearing a mask. Like, so there were days where it was very restrictive, and there's days where it was, after I think I counted like 70 COVID tests, it becomes just the norm. Like,
Wow.
So there were times, where it's very frustrating, especially with, as Hannah said, with background. There was a day where we were shooting in Troy, and we had to basically recreate New York City, so we needed background extras. But because the crew needed to get tested first to clear for work, they were first. But then we could not have background actors on set until their tests came in. So we're at a point where we're ready to go, but we're waiting for all the background actors' tests to come back before they can get let in on set. So we're losing daylight, we're losing the day. And so that was a whole frustrating thing, where it's like, you would have background actors there right when the crew is there, and they would get checked in and they go through rehearsal, stuff like that. They couldn't even start rehearsal with the background until all their tests came back.
Wow.
So that was a frustrating day for the AD department, not necessarily for an onset, but for the AD department, I'm sure it was hell.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're about to open it up, our Q&A here, but first I want to just mention that we are having a sale on Film Neighbor Network merch. We have shirts, we have mugs, and we have pins. Right now our shirts are $20, so this is a really great time to grab one of these. Yes, if you have it on, please show it off. We have buttons that are down to $5 and $6 depending on what size you want to get, as well as $13 and $14 mugs like this, depending on if you want a big one or a small one. Donate our merchandise sales. All of that money goes to our operating costs, and specifically the donation that we like to make every session to a charity of choice. This particular session, we have the Little Portion Friary of Buffalo that we're going to be donating to from the proceeds of our merchandise sale. Hannah, can you talk a little bit about this charity?
Yeah, so my mom met the ladies who run this charity, and it's a little bit of a different kind of shelter where they create a very loving and home environment. So the people that do have this issue, and they can go there and feel like they are at home, which stabilizes them in more of a way than if you're just lining up and getting out kind of thing. So they operate all year long. I'm not sure how they're operating with COVID, but they're always in need of just paper products, just things that you go through every day that you don't even think about, but these people don't have anything. So every year around Christmas time, my family goes and we donate a bunch of things like that to them. So this is going to be tacked onto that, and it's going to be a nice big donation
All right.
to help them out.
Thank you very much. And then I see Robin just put the donation link in the chat. So please go and check out this charity, and then go and check out our merchandise store to get some Film Neighbor Network swag. But with that out of the way, I want to open it up. If you have questions that you would like to ask any of our experts here, please either type it in the chat or do something to get our attention, and I will call on you. But these guys, again, are a wealth of information, and I'm sure they'd be willing to answer whatever you have. Anybody? Oh, Kyle, did you say something?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Yes.
I just again wanted to say thank you. A little bit about me. I'm Chris Fortin, and from Niagara Falls, born and raised here. And like I said, a lot of you look familiar. I appreciate you having this. From the actor side, not much going on now, as you know, but I feel that in the downtime for actors, that this is a good time for us to sharpen our skills, to get more education of the industry. I just got done taking a 4-week class with scene study class with Josie DiVincenzo. So it's a good opportunity for us actors to learn different things, and I learned a lot from joining this today. And one thing, I'll just give you guys a shout out. I did do a production assistant work with Adam Steigert on his Horrific Evil Monsters, and it's not as easy as it looks. Far from it. And so I just want to say, from the actors world, we appreciate you guys. I appreciate you having this today. And you are acting is a big family, and you guys give off those vibes too, because when you're on set for the first time, or I was on Wolf Boy, I was on Purge, I was on some pretty big things, and yeah, sometimes you do feel a little lost or overwhelmed, and knowing that there's other people, and especially people from our community, from Buffalo, from Niagara Falls, from Western New York, that are there and are able to, just make you feel more comfortable on set. And I've never bumped into anyone that wouldn't help you with anything really on a set. So big shout out to you guys, and thanks for having this. It was really good. So I appreciate you, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christopher.
It looks like there's some questions in the chat.
Yep. So Avi asks a very important question: is there work to be had right now? Is this a good time to get into the industry? Can anybody speak to that?
I'm gonna do a broad comment. There isn't. I mean, where we are, there's nothing film wise. But my gut is that for those of you that are from out of town, we have one sound stage, and again, we're a little city, right? We have one sound stage that's happening. We have another one that was announced over the summer that's being built, and then one that I didn't even know about. A third one is going up in the South Towns. It's also starting building soon. So my gut is, and from the rumors that I've heard, is that we're all just in a pause period. And as I've said to my partner, I think once the vaccine's out and we slowly get back to normal, which may be a little while, but then none of us are going to have a day off. I'm probably not going to have a day off until I die, which will hopefully be 20 years from now or more. But I think it's just, we all just have to hold on. And because I mean, my understanding from the people that I know that are a little bit higher up or way higher up in the industry is that there's a huge lack of content right now. There's a lot of things that are ready to go. It's just waiting for it to be safer. I mean, it's a huge risk for anybody to be shooting anything, as we've heard, right? All it takes is one person to sneak out and go to a party and infect a production, and it shuts down. So there's a lot of things that are holding off. But I think, I mean, there's been rumors that things are starting here in the spring, but I just don't. I mean, the way things are going right now, who knows? We'll see. But I think, you know, it's just a matter of having more patience, though we don't probably have a lot left.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for that. And then Cameron asked about the hours it takes to get into a union, and does that differ between different unions? What is that magic number?
I don't think there's one number.
No?
I think it is different for each union, and I think it, you know, a lot of times you can get qualified by being on a larger show and being on the run of a larger show. David, do you know? I don't. It's not an hour. There's no like cumulative hours.
I think West Coast it is, and I think
It definitely is in the West Coast.
yeah,
for sure.
I think that, you know, even like I worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie as a PA, and they were all talking about like saving your call sheets, because I don't know how that group works, but you had to save to prove that you would put in a certain number of hours. But I
That's
don't think
DGA.
I think for the DGA it's 600 PA days.
Yes. Okay. Yep. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But I think,
Yeah.
and I don't want to, you know, I don't think any of us are real union experts here, but I think it has more to do with what we talked about before, and showing up, and, you know, you may have to, you know, quote unquote, pay your dues a bit to get pulled up into it. But I think it's just hanging in there and showing up, and eventually, and I guess again, one of the things Buffalo as opposed to LA or New York, where you've got a lot of people that aren't working that are in the union, you're going to have a lot harder time getting into the union there, because people are sitting at home unemployed, and they're not going to hire, you know, we're not going to bring somebody up into the union when they've got somebody sitting at home unemployed. So, but that will change when things start to blow up, which they are.
All right.
But it's a little bit of a catch-22, I guess, there.
In LA, because I'm trying to get the equivalent to the 52 card that David was talking about in New York is 44 in Los Angeles. And for that, there's 3 different ways that you can get into it. There's a show can flip, which means it's a non-union, and then the union shows up and they flip the show. And if the show can afford it, they can move on, and everyone can get their union card that isn't union on it. And then it's a 30-day work to get into 44. But the issue is that you have to work in a union position, and that means that they have to call everyone on their list first. And if no one else can show up, then you can go take the union position for the day. So getting 30 days is a lot harder than just like hopping on something, because you have to collect them from everywhere. Or there's another option where a show will operate unsyndicated, which means they haven't officially signed with the union yet. So you can get on a show as a higher position when they're non-union, but right before they start filming, they'll syndicate, which means that they unionize, which means it's kind of like a back way you can get in. So there's just, I feel like it's all circumstantial, but 30 days is pretty much is what you have to do here in LA.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Does anyone else have any more questions here? If not, I will just say thank you very much to our participants, Hannah, Justin, Frank, David, and Kyle. You guys have been a huge help and gave us some really great information to our viewers here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Robin Lazara behind the scenes, making all this happen. She posted the links to our donation page and our threadless merchandise shop down in the chat. So please go and visit those if you like what you saw here. And otherwise, I will just say thank you. Look out on our social media for our next session here. Otherwise, thank you, everybody, and have a great day.